His electricity cost doubled in 2 years. His export price did not move by a single cent. He is absorbing the loss, or losing the order. That is not a line from an economic report. That is a real person running a real factory in Dhaka, Bangladesh, right now, in March 2026. And if you run a business, manage a budget, or send money home to your family, that sentence is your story too. Just with different numbers. Here is what is different about this episode. We are not talking about a slow trend that built over decades. We are talking about a war that started on the 28th of February, 2026. And its first victims are not on a battlefield. They are in factories in Dhaka. They are migrant workers stranded in Gulf airports. They are families sitting beside a phone, waiting for a money transfer that has not arrived. Over the next 10 minutes, we are going to use Bangladesh as a live case study. For problems, real numbers from 2025 and 2026. And for every problem, a real solution. At the end, I will give you one AI prompt you can run right now, on Claude or Gemini, to get the same picture for your own country. I am Arman Akbari Khan. This is the Trifecta. Let us start on the street and work our way up to the global system. Why Bangladesh? Because it sits at the intersection of every major global pressure we have been tracking. It earns most of its foreign income from garment exports, going to the US and Europe. In 2025 alone, that earned Bangladesh $38.8 billion, roughly 80% of everything the country exports. It depends on remittances from over 4.5 million workers living in the Gulf. In 2025, those workers sent home a record $32.8 billion, the highest single year in Bangladesh's history. It imports almost all of its energy, oil, gas, LNG, from or through the Middle East. And the Bangladeshi Taka has lost 42% of its value against the US dollar in just 3 years. If the global system gets a cold, Bangladesh gets a fever. But this story does not belong only to Bangladesh. It is Nigeria, Kenya. It is India, Pakistan, Vietnam, Philippines. It is Bolivia, Colombia, Brazil. It is any country that earns, imports, and depends the way Bangladesh does. Same pressure points. Same consequences. Different name on the door. Problem 1. The supply chain. Bangladesh's garment sector employs over 4 million people, mostly women, and it is the backbone of the entire economy. Here is how it worked beautifully for 4 decades. Fabric in from China and India. Workers cut and sew. Clothes go out to brands in New York, London, Paris, Berlin. Simple, reliable, profitable. Now here is what is squeezing it from every direction in March 2026. First, the US imposed a tariff of 37% on Bangladeshi garments earlier this year. After months of negotiation, it came down to 19%. That is still 19% more expensive than before, and US buyers responded by cutting orders. Some buyers suspended orders entirely while the negotiation was playing out, and factories were left holding raw materials they had already paid for. Second, when the US hit China and India with even higher tariffs, those countries did not stop exporting. They redirected their goods into Europe instead, at discounted prices. Bangladesh, which was already selling into Europe, suddenly found itself competing against Chinese and Indian goods at prices below its own cost of production. The average price that Bangladeshi garments sold for in Europe fell by over 2% in 2025. Squeezed from the US. Undercut in Europe. And the energy and cost problems we are about to discuss are hitting from below at the same time. The solution is not to wait. Diversify export markets now. Japan, Australia, Canada, and Gulf markets are growing and underserved. Move up the value chain. Technical wear, sustainable fashion, and higher margin products make factories harder to replace. And take the 19% tariff as a relative advantage. Vietnam is at 20%, China is above 30%. Problem 2. The currency. In mid-2022, $1 cost you 86 Bangladeshi Taka. In March 2026, that same dollar costs 122 Taka. That is a 42% drop in the purchasing power of the Taka in less than 4 years. What does that mean in real life? Everything imported and priced in dollars, oil, machinery, medicine, electronics, now costs 42% more in local currency. even if the international price did not change by a single cent. Inflation in Bangladesh hit 9.13% in February 2026. That is the highest reading in 10 months, and it is moving in the wrong direction again. For ordinary families, that is not a percentage. It is a smaller dinner plate. The good news is that foreign reserves have recovered. Bangladesh rebuilt its reserves from around $20 billion at their lowest point in 2024 to $33 billion by the end of 2025. That recovery took 2 years and was built almost entirely on a record remittance year. And that record remittance year is now directly in the line of fire. Which brings us to Problem 3. Problem 3. Remittances. In 2025, Bangladesh received $32.8 billion in remittances from workers abroad. That is a record. The highest single-year remittance inflow in the country's entire history. It funded millions of families. It rebuilt the foreign reserves. It kept the economy breathing. 45% of that money, roughly $15 billion every year, comes from 6 Gulf countries: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman. 4.5 million Bangladeshi workers live and work there right now. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched joint airstrikes on Iran. Iran responded by closing the Strait of Hormuz and launching retaliatory strikes across the Gulf. Multiple Gulf countries, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, immediately closed their airspace. 55,000 travelers were stranded in a single day. Thousands of Bangladeshi workers who had come home on leave cannot get back to their jobs. Their visas are expiring. Their employers are waiting. Some are already hiring replacements. If the conflict continues and Gulf remittances drop by just 20%, that is a $3 billion hole in Bangladesh's economy every year. The reserve recovery that took 2 years to build could unwind in months. The solution is to act before the unwind accelerates. Actively expand labor migration to Japan, South Korea, and Eastern Europe, all of which have growing labor shortages and are actively recruiting. Guide families to invest remittances, not just spend them. And if you are a worker currently stranded, contact your embassy immediately. Problem 4. Energy. Bangladesh imports almost all of its fuel: crude oil, refined petroleum, liquefied natural gas. When the Strait of Hormuz closes, as it did on the 1st of March 2026, Bangladesh pays more for energy. Full stop. But there is a specific hit that makes this worse. Bangladesh depends heavily on Qatar for LNG, liquefied natural gas. Qatar is the world's largest LNG exporter. On March 2nd, Qatar halted production and declared force majeure on its gas contracts. Force majeure means, we cannot deliver what we promised, and the law agrees it is not our fault. The result? Fuel queues forming across Bangladesh. Universities closed. Factories running generators at 3 to 4 times the cost of grid power. That factory owner from our opening, this is the second reason his costs doubled. The first was tariffs cutting his revenue. The second is energy cutting into what was left. Both happening at the same time. The solution starts with the building you are in. Bangladesh has excellent solar conditions year-round. A factory generating 30 to 40% of its own electricity through rooftop solar breaks the fuel price dependency. Return on investment, 4 to 6 years. Cost risk reduction, immediate. Run an energy audit this week. Most businesses waste 15 to 25% of their energy through old equipment and inefficiency. Now let us zoom out. The 4 problems we just covered are not separate local problems with separate local causes. They are 4 symptoms of the same 3 global shifts. Global Shift 1. The United States has rewritten the rules of global trade. Tariffs on Bangladesh. Tariffs on China. Tariffs on India. Every country in the chain is now repricing its relationships. Bangladesh's garment sector was built on 40 years of trade stability. That stability is over. Global Shift 2. The U.S. and Israel attacked Iran on February 28. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. Qatar halted gas. Iraq and Kuwait cut output by 70%. The energy system that powered global growth for 50 years is now under direct military pressure. Global Shift 3. 4.5 million Bangladeshi workers in the Gulf are now in a conflict zone. A record $32.8 billion remittance year, the one that rebuilt Bangladesh's reserves, is now at risk in the same week the data was being celebrated. Bangladesh did not cause any of this. Bangladesh is the lens. Look through it, and you see the global system reorganizing itself faster than anyone expected, with less warning than anyone prepared for. Here is the good news. None of these problems require you to wait for a government to act. You have a research tool available right now that most people are not using properly. Claude at Claude.ai, Gemini at Gemini.google.com. Both are free. Both are updated with current information. Pause here. Copy this prompt. Swap the bracket with your country. Run it. Run a full economic stress test for your country based on the crisis happening right now in March 2026. The 4 active shocks are the U.S.-Israel war on Iran, the Strait of Hormuz blocked and Gulf airspace closed, U.S. tariffs reshaping global trade, and LNG supply disruption from Qatar's production halt. For each shock, explain the impact on your country, rate it low, medium, or high, and give 2 practical responses. Finish with a 3-step priority action list for a business leader in your country this week. Drop your country and your key finding in the comments. I read every one. The people who navigate the next few years, will not be the luckiest. They will be the most informed. Bangladesh is not a unique story. It is a common story wearing a local face. We started today at street level, a factory owner absorbing costs he cannot pass on. We followed those costs upstream, through tariffs, currency pressure, stranded workers, and a closed waterway. And we arrived at the global system reorganizing itself in real time. Now you know why. In episode 5, we go deeper into the energy story. The Strait of Hormuz. Why this disruption is structurally different from every energy crisis before it. And who is quietly getting rich while the rest of the world scrambles. That is episode 5. And it will change how you read an energy bill. If today made the world make more sense, share it with one person who runs a business or manages a budget. And if your organization needs frameworks to operate in exactly this environment, Stop Guessing is the toolkit. Link in the description. Stay sharp, stay adaptable, and stop guessing.